Greetings again, everybody. It is wonderful to be back with you at the heart of motorsport in Brazil for the Endurance Challenge to conclude for 2025. We're on the Autódromo José Carlos Pache in downtown Sao Paulo, the home of Formula One in the country since 1990. And it is wonderful to be back once again for a 300-kilometer race, battling out over the course of this magnificent battle. We're going to see some fantastic race battles in the endurance category tomorrow. But before we get to that point, it's time to go qualifying. I'm Jake Sanson. Beside me in the commentary box for this final round of the 2025 Porsche Endurance Challenge Brazil is Alex Goldschmidt. Great to be with you, buddy.
Hello, Jake. Hello, everybody. Yes, for the 500-kilometer race tomorrow. I mean, Interlagos, it needs no introduction, and it is going to be an interesting one. I mean, having I had the opportunity to do qualifying back at Portimao at stage 4, but this has got a star-studded field of not just Brazilian superstars, but also we've got a Hollywood star returning to Porsche racing for the first time in a couple of years.
Yes, indeed. It's going to be an interesting one because for the first time in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil brigade, particularly, we have the Hollywood ace Michael Fassbender, the man who, of course, was born in Germany, doing a fantastic job as a racing driver, the man from Heidelberg, who is known for his appearances in the X-Men and Alien sagas, as well as performing as the late, great Steve Jobs. But he's been racing at the Le Mans 24 Hours, the European Le Mans Series, and the FIA World Endurance Championship since 2020, all in a Porsche. So it all makes perfect sense for him to be competing in the Porsche Carrera Cup, and where better to do it than in Brazil, under the tutelage of a very talented racing driver, Alex, Max Wilson, who's done pretty much everything there is to do, from champ cars to DTM to Formula 3000, even to test driving for Williams and Minardi in Formula One.
Yeah, I mean, Max has got such a curriculum vitae of experience. I mean, it's like there's been a bit of a bromance that's been kindled between Michael and Max. I mean, also we had free practice earlier on today, and very, very close as we're underway with the first two 20-minute sessions for the Carrera Cup divisions, and that will include Sport and Rookie. Of course, these drivers using the current 992 generation GT3 Cup car, 4-litre naturally aspirated flat 6 boxer engine, producing around about 510 horsepower, weighs about 1,260 kilos, and very soon will be in a way replaced by the newcomer for next season in the Mobil 1 Super Cup, the 911 Cup car, which has a bit more horsepower, but these still are very, very difficult to drive. Of course, we're keeping an eye on a lot of people that have been competing in this championship. Marcel Müller, who's now reunited once again for after a storming victory at the Cascais Grand Prix at Estoril a few months ago with Felipe Fraga, the youngest ever Stock Car Pro Series champion in its history back in 2016. But this is where we really, really see, Michael Fassbender is out in the car first, so he's the first driver. Max Wilson will go out in session 2. So it's the average of both the best lap times of each driver that sets the route for tomorrow's 500-kilometer race, which is around about 117 laps here at Interlagos.
Yes, indeed, 117 laps, or 4 hours and 15 minutes, whichever happens first. It'll be a fantastic race battle tomorrow. Wonderful sight already in qualifying, as we have the two main men of the battle in 2025 in the sprint category. Fabulous to see Marcel Müller and Miguel Peludo, the two men who basically spent the entire 2025 Sprint Challenge season paving their way and trading paint, as they did in the season finale 3 weeks ago here at the Interlagos circuit in fantastic fashion. Great to see everybody acclimatizing themselves again after that. It's going to be wonderful to see the race battle over 500 kilometers of race action, and it means that we've got a handful of entries that have decided to go for a third driver. It's not mandatory, it is only a statutory courtesy for some teams, but some have decided to do so. That means that we've got Nelson Monteiro teaming up with Caio Chavez and Thiago Camilo in the number 87 car. Also means that Roman Simkovic and Nelson Piquet Jr. are joined by Marcos Regadas. Matias Roque is now teaming up with Edu Guedes and Flavio Champao. And then we have a very old face. Luis Fernando Trevisan is joining up with Rafael Martins and Leonardo Sanchez. They actually went quickest in practice yesterday, strangely enough. And joining Andre Bragantini Jr. and Pedro Aguar, we have Piero Cifali, regular Porsche Brazil driver, joining in. The final two cars that have decided to go for a third driver is Maurizio Billy, along with his son Marco and Gaetano De Moro. And then we also have a fantastic guest appearance in this final race of the 2025 campaign as well, from the car that is being distributed around by Christian Moore and Enzo Elias. They've teamed up for the first time, and they've added Andre Rosario to their lineup. So we've got a few cars that are on 3 drivers, but not all of them, and it's certainly not mandatory. We're going to see a replay. This is a bit of an incident further back. Whoops, nice little pirouette there going into the Pico de Pato section.
Yeah, I think that might have been the 83 car, no, it's the 33 that has just spun it, and that is the pairing. Oh, that's not exactly what you want on one of those Michelin Cup Sport tyres either. No,
it's a bit of a difficulty there for the 33, as you mentioned, Alex, and that is a very slow puncture there for Bruno Campos. That's going to be him bringing that back into pit lane, and that really hampers their chances of getting things hooked up together for qualifying. There is the 38 coming through. At the moment, it is Francisco Horta who has the top time with a 1:36.794 in front of Nuno Perez and Caio Chavez. But Christian Hahn coming through, doing a good job there in the number 26 machine. Good to see Christian Hahn getting a go in the final round of the championship. Not really somebody who's used to doing the endurance ranks. As we watch the 38 car going through the first sector, that is Edu Santos, currently 6 seconds away from pace. Another great returning face for this one, of course, for the season finale, is last year's champion in the endurance ranks, and he is currently in 5th place. Just as I pick up on it, here he is, the treble one. Rubens Barrichello is back in the house, Alex. We love to see him. And it's crazy to think that he's only 53 years of age, because he still doesn't look a day over 33.
53 years young, Mr. Rubens Barrichello, and he's joined by son Fifthall, who made his debut in the FIA Formula 3 Championship this year back at Monza with AIX Racing, and is going to do a full campaign. And guess who part of their driver crew is in terms of coaching? Dudu is back in the fold here in Interlagos as well, and I saw a really funny story from Fefu. He said, first day I'm really nervous, and Dudu was on the other side of the table, and I just thought, trust the Barrichellos to bring that all-time humour to social media. I mean, Rubens is an absolute class act. I mean, 2-time stock car champion in his own right, 2017, 2022, 322 races in Formula 1, and also this year secured the NASCAR Brazil title with full-time sports, but he's just announced a move to Scuderia Banderas for Stock Car Pro for next year.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting lineup change for him, and for me, that's a bit of an ambition to go for a 2nd title. So that's really exciting to see what he'll be able to produce in that particular car and that particular lineup. But this will be an emotive one, of course, for our man from the front end of the pack, Rubens Barrichello. Of course, he won the championship last year as a competitor in the Endurance Championship full-time alongside Werner Luckberger. But this one's going to be even more emotive. We know that Rubens is one of those racing drivers that has always worn his heart on his sleeve. So to be getting the chance to do this alongside his 2 sons, it's going to be so emotional for him to compete in this last round of the championship, knowing that there's no title on the line, but they have the ambition to go for the win. So that'll be a very pleasant way for their 2025 motorsport season to conclude. Christian Hahn goes to the top spot, 1:36.679 for Christian Hahn. Very close indeed over the top end, just a 1/10 of a second over Francisco Horta then. Lino Perez, Caio Chavez, Peter Fetter, and that is Caio Campos running in 6th position ahead of the 2nd fastest car in Carrera, Marcel Muller. Rubens Barrichello, 8th at the moment, in front of Marcos Regadas and Christian Moore. And then we have Rodrigo Melo in front of Yosimar Junior. very popular member of the paddock, of course, Josimar Junior, spent the entirety of the 2024 season in a car that was bedecked in the livery of the original helmet design for the late great Ayrton Senna da Silva to commemorate 30 years since his tragic passing. There were a lot of Ayrton Senna tribute last year. This year, it's all been about celebrating 20 years of the Porsche Championship. In fact, the number 93 car, which is being shared by Michael Fassbender and Max Wilson, is actually in a 20th anniversary Porsche Brazil livery, specially commemorated for this last weekend of the category. And it has been a fantastic season, I have to say, right from the start to the end. The three-way battles for the victory all the way through the year between Miguel Paludo, Christian Hahn, and the man who could have been king, Marcel Müller, last year's champion, had it not been for 3 punctures while leading in consecutive race weekends. I still can't believe it. Led the opening round of the championship at Velocita, puncture. Led the opening round of the second round of the championship at Velocita, puncture again. Then came to Interlagos. Surely lightning can't strike a third time. And guess what? It did. 3 race 1 leads ending in a puncture for Marcel Müller. Incredible how he fought it back to third in the Drivers' Championship, considering. But yeah, the title was already lost by that point of the season. So it's nice to see that he's got the pressure off him here, Marcel Müller, and he can at least go for what is looking likely to be the endurance title based on what has happened over the first 2 events at Portimao and Estoril. We're looking at a man who gets the return to the endurance ball. He sat out in Portugal. Business commitments took over for Alcy Feldman, but it's good to see that Daddy is back in town again after sharing this paddock with his son, Alcy Feldman Nito, for time immemorial. But the 52-year-old from Rio do Sul in Santa Catarina managing to get back behind the wheel again, and he's sharing that car with Guillermo Salas, a quite regular competitor in Stock Car Pro. Great to see the Tag Heuer #1 car back in action again.
Yeah, and also speaking of his son, he's paired up with Gabriel Casagrande, of course, 3-time Stock Car Pro Series champion. And one of the things that I managed to, before this weekend, have a look at the Cascais Grand Prix, where we did have quite a lot of drama in that race. And I know that you will definitely remember, especially with a couple of drivers having some dramas coming into the pit lane or at the final corner. You know, when you think about it on pace, the way that Marcel Müller and Felipe Fraga have ruled the roost, they've won both endurance races so far, which has given them the maximum haul of points. So they are going to be a tough nut to crack here. But at Interlagos, we all know that air of unpredictability, but also the fact that it's over 106 entrants for this weekend, including 85 plus drivers in the endurance 500 kilometer finale itself. And what's more, I think a sold-out event here at Interlagos. That's a way to really bookend the 20th anniversary of the C6 Bank Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil, Sprints Challenge Brazil, and also the Endurance Challenge.
Yeah, sellout is fantastic for the last round of the championship, to have a completely full capacity grid over 500 kilometers of this Interlagos circuit. There is the 16, the Blau car, being shared, as it always is, of course, in flamboyant fashion in this championship by Hahn and Cordeia. So good to see them continuing their fantastic partnership. Christian Hahn still right over the sharp end of the field. Those 2 drivers getting themselves back into it. Ian Cordeia, of course, with Blau Motorsport colours in Stock Car Pro, as well as in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. Good to see him continuing his trend there, as the Blau Motorsport car currently under the tutelage of Marcel Hahn, I think it is, who's behind the wheel of that car at the moment. He'll hand over to Ian Cordeia, the former A1 GP driver for Brazil. That really is going back away for that particular competitor. Jeff Chiassi, we're watching him on screen because he's just gone top. Very impressive indeed from a rookie entry competitor. Chiassi sharing the car with Silvio Modestoni. And the 911 car has actually gone up to the top of the timesheets with a 1:36.411. Their second lap in succession, not quite as impressive. But how about this for a race tomorrow, Alex? We've got 3 different cars from all 3 classes of the Carrera Cup in first, second and third. And none of them is this man, Miguel Paludo.
And that's probably, to a lot of people, it might be quite a big of a surprise. I mean, it's not got Miguel Paludo behind the wheel at the moment. more to the point, it has got Alan Hellmeister, who's trying to move up the order and is actually a little bit further behind. I mean, also coming back to Michael Fassbender, he's been quite open, he says that Ayrton Senna da Silva is his racing hero. He's made multiple trips to multiple different locations in Brazil, but has this is his first competitive outing in a 992 generation GT3 Cup car. And at one point, he was running mid-pack P15, as I've just noticed that the number 56 has just pitted. And that is the entry with Peter Ferta and Diego Nunes, as we are still keeping an eye on Marcel Müller, who's just gone purple across the board. And a little bit of a flash of the headlights as he comes through out of turn number 15 through Arquibacanderas, which is basically Brazilian Portuguese for the bleachers. And this could go to the top of the timesheets. What's it going to be for Marcel Müller? Straight away goes in, 1:36.287.
A perfect lap from Marcel Müller, straight to the top of the timesheets then, ahead of Jeff Gyasi and Rubens Barrichello, who's now come up into third position. There is the treble one of Rubens Barrichello. But it's rather fitting that Marcel Müller is finally getting some joy in 2025 after the misery of the start of the season in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil itself. To have the endurance challenge go his way is rather fitting. Denied the chance to go for the championship after what looked like it was going to be back-to-back titles. Very nice to see that Miguel Paludo, the Michael Schumacher of our sport, very much able to go and grab the title, the 42-year-old from Porto Alegre in Rio Grande do Sul, who's done pretty much everything there is to do in the Americas. ARCA East, NASCAR Trucks World Challenge in both Europe and the Americas, and NASCAR Xfinity, as well as wrapping up this year's Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil Championship title, having won pretty much everything there is to win in this discipline. Marcel Müller now no longer on the top because Alan Hellmeister has displaced him. 1:36.227, only 0.06 of a second quicker at the moment. Though fascinating to see how things are continuing to unfold here. It's not clear-cut as to which of these two cars is going to remain on the top. And Alan Hellmeister determined to knock the 544 off the top spot.
Yeah, I mean, when we looked back at the free practice sessions yesterday, I mean, the top 5 were covered by 0.2. Top 15 covered by 0.6. So this is really going to be very, very crucial. We're going to get a replay here. That is the 33 car that has just ended off. That's I think that was Campos going off.
Because don't forget, he had the puncture earlier on.
Yes, he did. So I hope lightning has not struck twice for him. No, looks like he's back at full speed. I have to give a shout out to one of the drivers on this grid who's currently running in the number 38 car, Eric Santos. Had the pleasure of his company during this year of the Porsche Cup Suisse. He was running the Open GT, which is effectively the same cars as we've got here as another replay. Someone having a bit of an off going out of Junção at turn 12. So this track is rubbering in, Jake, but it is also possibly going to cause a little bit of drama if drivers go a little bit off the black stuff.
Yeah, it's so easy to let it go at this particular point on that curve. So a very interesting situation for the contenders as they run their way through. Across the line, Alan Hellmeister hoping for another fast lap. He's actually brought it into the pits. It's the number 8 car that's out on the course. Confusing, I know, because normally that runs under the number 95, the stereotypical number of Lightning McQueen from Radiator Springs. I'm not entirely sure what the difference is for this event to change it to the 8, but we don't have a number 95 in the field. I wonder if that in deference to Gabriel Casagrancia, actually, to change that car over to a number 8 for this event. Normally they run the number 95 between the 17-year-old Alcifel Benito, the 17-year-old from Corrida, and the 3-time Stock Car Brazil champion. So Gabriel Casagrancia joining in once again, as he has done all year long in that car. The checkered flag flies on the session, and Jeff Gyasi's gone into second place with his final flying lap, a 1:36.256, 28 thousandths of a second off the pace set by Alan Hellmeister. Marcel Müller, by the way, has come through, but has not taken the checkered flag, so he's got one more final flying lap if he wants to make something of that in the first sector. Barrichello's just done a 38.8 for sector 1. That's not his best, and Marcel Muller's done a 39.6. So that's that. I don't think we're going to get any more from it. So very interesting situation then up at the front end of the field, but it is Hellmeister from Gyasi, Muller and Barrichello, and they are covered by less than a tenth of a second. That's how tight it is at the top.
Wow. And then a big gap between Chavez and Christian Hahn, who rounds out the top 6. Then Horta, Feminito, and then Comparato in the 118. Mateus Comparato, who's partnered with Mateus Ferreira. And then it's Regadas in the number 80 car that rounds out the top 10. But yeah, I mean, again, we're just seeing these gaps are just so close, Jake. I mean, I think between Hahn and Horta is the biggest gap, like 0.4 of a second. And then I'm looking all the way down, and there's no gap that exceeds 0.3 of a second all the way down to Marcelo Hahn down in 25th. And that just shows the depth and the breadth of this field here in the Endurance Challenge.
It's quite astonishing, isn't it? We really have got an amazing field of drivers in this Endurance Challenge of Brazil, really gathering together the very best of Brazilian motorsport over the last 30 years, essentially. Great to see so many fantastic talents in the field, but it is Alan Hellmeister who is confirmed as the man on the top spot for this session of qualifying. Don't forget that we combine the times from Q1 and Q2 to get our median time. So once we get into the foray for a second time, we'll get the drivers from the Sprint Challenge next up. They will continue to make solid and steady progress, and then we're going to have the second run for each of the competitors. So they will have a second run for each of the cars in the field. So the competitors going for it. Alan Hellmeister, Jeff Gyasi and Marcel Muller, your top 3, and they are separated by 0.06 of a second. You've got to go down to 16th position, Christian Moore, to be within a second of pole position, and 2 seconds of pole position. Well, that is all the way down to Marcelo Hahn in 25th position. So very impressive stuff, but it tells you a lot, doesn't it, that the practice times don't bear any relation to what the drivers were doing in qualifying itself, because we end up with a very different situation. The car that was fastest in free practice was the number 15 of Sanchez, Martin and Trevisan. Well, they are down in 26th in qualifying, so practice bears no relation to what we are going to see over the course of these next few qualifying sessions.
No, I completely agree, Jake. I mean, the air temperature's dropped a little bit here in Interlagos. I mean, we're just under 32 degrees centigrade. Track temperature around about 36. So I think the biggest thing is that, as you said, practice never gives us a true indication of qualifying. And as we all know, when you have a 500-kilometer endurance race, anything can and will happen.
Absolutely will is the correct word in that, because certainly for the 2 earlier races at Portimao and Estoril, anything that could have happened happened to everybody except for Muller and Fraga. They were, for once, actually completely blemish-free in the 2 endurance races. Everybody else has hit a problem of some kind during either Portimao or Estoril. So it sort of makes up for Marcel Muller having 3 punctures in a row at the start of the season in 3 consecutive weekends. It would be quite fitting for him to round it off with the title, and it is looking quite likely. But it is going to be interesting to see that he's actually got quite a lot of opposition to challenge him for this particular final event, particularly the returning outgoing champion, Rubens Barrichello, taking over, of course. FIFA Barrichello was the one, by the way, who set the 136.322. I was incorrect. I said it was Rubens. It was actually Fifu who was behind the wheel of the car for the first session. Nelson Monteiro did a good job right at the end there to bring the car up into 5th position, just in front of Christian Hahn, Francisco Horta, Asifa Benito, and then Matias Camparato, the superstar teenager. How he's been able to jump into this car and be on the pace in his rookie season has been quite astonishing. the 18-year-old from Sao Paulo, who of course was last year's F4 Brazil champion and raced for Brazil in the Motorsport Games in Spain as well last season. And he was just a quick run ahead of Rubens Zimkiewicz. So all of the times from Q1 are then going to be added over and taken across into Q2 later. But we will now end up with the Carrera competitors getting out into the course once again. Now, I think we're going to have the drivers get out of their cars and hand straight over to their compatriots. And then for the following two sessions, we will get the drivers from the sprint fraternity. So challenge competitors will come out a little bit later on. One absence, I have to say, that is rather sad to see from this field, Alex, and we had the absence confirmed at Estoril, but repeated here, is the very talented teenage racer Antonella Bassani, who is carrying the flag hopes for female racing drivers in Brazil in the Porsche Brigade. I still earmark her as a potential Le Mans 24 Hours racer in the future for Porsche in their GT3 campaign. And yet, after the trade-off in the last round of the championship at Estoril for a new co-driver, it left Antonella Bassani without a seat, and she decided, well, that's clearly a sign. I don't need to carry on with the rest of the championship then. So she's unfortunately had to sat out the rest of the season. She was originally paired up with Nicolas Costa, and Nicolas Costa, of course, now since teaming up with Bruno Campos at his request. So a real shame that Bassani doesn't finish the season, but she certainly ended her year very well with a fighting drive in the Grand Prix weekend 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of promise. I mean, she was really, really quick in qualifying at stage 4 at Portimao. Of course, you mentioned about Matheus Camparato, the 18-year-old. He is one of the drivers that is currently, well, has just taken part in the candidacy for the Porsche Junior Works program, along with the likes of Marcus Amar, Flint Schuring, Janis Stiak, Enzo Trulli, Alexander Tauscher, who have all been selected from the respective Carrera Cups around the world. And he, you know, if that young man gets an opportunity to win the junior shootout, and that will be official. That the official Porsche Nights of Champions, which happens in 8 days' time, it could be the fact that maybe a certain Matheus Camparato becomes the latest driver that has an opportunity to be part of the Motorsport Junior program for this iconic Zuffenhausen-based brand.
Yeah, it certainly would be fantastic, wouldn't it? And there's a lot of great potential in that young man, Matheus Camparato. Certainly put on some great turns of speed over the season. Very nearly took his first victory in the competition outright as well through 2025. So there's plenty more to come from him. The drivers gearing up then for the second session in Carrera. They do back-to-back in Carreras so that the driver can get behind the wheel of the car while it's still hot. And then the Sprint Challenge competitors will head out onto the course, and they will all go out on the circuit together. Not as many competitors in Sprint Challenge, and they, of course, run with the cars that are slightly less equipped in power. These are all the 992 Porsche Carrera Cup cars. The Sprint Challenge counterparts are in the 991.2 machines with 25 brake horsepower less. But they will still have a great opportunity to go for the midfield battles over the course of a 500-kilometer race. So don't think that 25 brake horsepower deficiency is going to keep them from the sharp end.
Yeah, I mean, considering the fact that the current 992 generation car is around about 85 kilos heavier, so that additional 25 brake horsepower kind of makes up for it. But also the challenge cars have 200 cc's of less displacement in the flat six boxer engines. So, of course,
it's almost a balance of performance, isn't it? Very
that's
nearly.
Exactly it. You took the words exactly right out of my mouth there, Jake. I mean, the good thing is that it allows people that, you know, that haven't got the budget to run a 992, a Gen 992 car. But it also gives them the opportunity to maybe one of the teams to say, hey, you know what, we'll pick you up for the next season. And they may say, well, we'll cover your seats, we'll pay you to drive for us. That can happen, you know, because there are teams out here in Carrera Cups, all around the world. There's like 35 different sport cups and Carrera Cups all across the world that take place. Of course, Carrera Cup Middle East has just recently started in Bahrain, I think, quite recently. So there's a lot that goes on. Porsche Motorsport never sleeps. 365 days of the year. There's usually one meeting somewhere in the world that's going on.
Yeah, genuinely does have a beating heart all across the motorsport spectrum, across the 6 continents around the world. There goes Rubens Barrichello out onto the course, just in front of the 58 car, which is now, of course, going to be piloted. Oh, sorry, the 38 car, I should say. Sorry, that will now, of course, be driven by Eric Santos, I do believe.
Gabriel
over that car. Oh, Gabriel Horeb, of course. Yep. Santos did the first session. My apologies. So Gabriel Horeb taking over. Then Felipe Batista. Now, he's one to watch out for, Felipe Batista. A bit of a superstar talent in the Stock Car Pro of Brazil, and he's teaming up with Christian Hahn for this event as a one-off. But the 22-year-old from Sao Paulo, definitely worth keeping an eye on. He's been racing in Stock Car Pro since the 2022 season, a former Stock Light champion in the rookie title in 2020, the main championship in 2021, and he's the man who took over from Tony Kanaan in the Texaco machine, which is one of the most famous of the liveries in Stock Car Pro, entrusted in that particular car to do the job, and he has done everything there is to do except become champion. So he's definitely a big talent for the future, Felipe Batista, and he will want to prove that right here as we take a look at Nelson Piquet Jr. Well, another big name in the mix in the Porsche Endurance Challenge. The first ever Formula E champion, second in Formula One at the German Grand Prix 2008 behind a certain Lewis Hamilton, and certainly a great competitor in his own right. He's a driver who's pretty much driven everything there is to drive in the sport in one way or another. He's raced in Formula One, the A1 Grand Prix World Cup, the Le Mans 24 Hours, NASCAR, Stock Car Pro, you name it, he's done it.
Yeah, he definitely has. But also, let's not forget the man who's behind the wheel of the number 3, previous Carrera Cup Brazil champion in his own right, Enzo Elias, if I remember correctly.
Indeed. Yeah, no, it is. 23-year-old from Brasilia, the youngest ever man to do so. And Enzo Elias currently 3rd in the standings in the championship in 2025, really starting to put on a great show. He was, of course, the GT3 Cup Brasil champion all the way back in 2019 at the tender age of 17. So it shows you the kind of talent that he is. Raced in the Michelin Le Mans Cup as well quite recently, so definitely a man to watch out for. But there is the 544 now being piloted by Felipe Fraga, the 30-year-old from Jashunda, Stock Car Pro champion. I can't believe I'm going to say this, 2016. Such a long time ago that Felipe Fraga won the title, 9 years ago.
Now I feel old, really old, you know. And, but Felipe Fraga has just gone purple in sector number 1, and now the number 100. I think that's Marcos Gomez behind the wheel, has just gone purple in sector 2. But it's the 888 that sets the benchmark here, and that is Beto Gresse with a 136.894. So we're now going to see this this nice little, as you say, the average aggregate between the fastest lap times of the drivers. And Fraga goes in with a 36.755. Gaetano Di Mauro, 21,000 behind him. And then the number 33 has just gone across the line, Nicolas Costa, 136.8. And then also, good to see Thiago Camilo on the grid as well. So, replay here, and that's not how you want to take those couple of corners, and that was the 118 car going off the circuit, and that was Mateus Ferreira. So still 15 minutes to go in this session. And it will be quite interesting to see how this will work its way around as the number 26 of Baptista goes to the top of the timesheets. That's 1:36.489, which puts the car on aggregate second. And that is currently behind the 9:11 of Giassi and Modestoni. Modestoni now behind the wheel. And at this point...
I was a little concerned, apologies, for Silvio Moristoni on the outlap. It looked as though he was having a slow puncture on the right front of the car, but I must have been mistaken. There is the 93. That's Max Wilson, having taken over from Michael Fassbender. Loving the livery of that particular car, the 20th anniversary Porsche.
I think that's one of the nice things. I mean, Michael was very, very open and honest on a recent, an article earlier on today on the Porsche Cup Brasil website, saying that, you know, first time behind the wheel of a 992, but he's got exactly the right wingman alongside him. Definitely going to be dragging that 992 Cup car by its rear wing.
Max Wilson never does anything other than flat out full chat, does he? So it'll be great to see what he can do and his expertise. We were talking about the aggregate median time here. With Max Wilson in the wheel of that car, there's an argument to suggest that that could get on the front row of the grid, because we've seen it from time to time that the first session pace does not dictate who's going to be on the front row of the grid. It is the average median time, don't forget, not the fastest time that counts. So it is going to be fascinating to see who gets the best of it. And at the moment, Rafael Martins has gone quickest in the session at 1:35.6, which has elevated the number 15 from what would be 26th on the grid where they were originally to up to 15th. So it really does change based on the median average.
And that's, I think in some respects, that's actually quite a good way of, you know, setting the grid itself. As now behind the wheel of the number 8, the three-time Stock Car Pro champion, Gabriel Casagrange. Good to see him. I mean, it's so nice to see. I mean, with regards to, you know, for you and myself, you know, we've had the opportunity to get to know a lot of these drivers through our tenure through Stock Car Pro, but we're going to see another moment here. And now this is, now that's Max Wilson. Was that all that? Now Max had a slight moment there, and going through was the 77 entry. William Freire. Going through. So I think in some respects, just seeing a lot of these drivers that we've commentated on for a multitude of years on the English transmissions of Stock Car Pro Series, it's really good to see them in a different category, because it just shows the adaptability of drivers in motorsport.
Really does. Gabriel Casagrange, three-time Stock Car Pro champion. As I have referred to him in the past as Casa Grandstand, he always gives us plenty of amazing battles in motorsport. Always a fantastic competitor, and he's never dull to watch. Across the finish line to end the lap, that is the 77, William Freire, finishing off his run. And you can see right at the limit on full chat, that is the 15 of Rafael Martins. So Martins is the one who managed to get this car up towards the sharp end in free practice. The 26-year-old former competitor in the FIA Karting Academy Trophy, which is, of course, the championship that gave the world Charles Leclerc all the way back in 2011. Raced in the F1 British Championship, Pro Mazda, Stock Car Pro, BR Stock Light. Very talented individual is Rafael Martins. Doesn't quite have the same budget and income of sponsorship that the other drivers do, but if you give him a decent set of wheels, he is going to absolutely stretch it.
Yeah, and he's heading up to turn 15 at Arquibacandas, the bleachers, which will be filled to the rafters. There's been a lot of excitement on social media ahead of this final round of the season. Of course, yeah, I mean, it's just been, you know, as through my travels through Porsche Sports Cup Swiss, having got to know some of the drivers, like, say, Eric Santos, who quite recently got hitched. So congratulations to him. They are stopping a couple of the cars at the end of the pit lane. I think, who's that going out? That's the 87. So there's a lot of wheel gun operation happening in the pit lane as well, because they're trying to, with the last 10 minutes in this session remaining, Jake, it's about trying to get those cars as high up the order as possible. And at the moment, it is Christian Hahn and Felipe Baptista who on a median average between them have done a 136.433 in terms of that. And then, well, Thiago Camilo, the Stock Car Pro Series resident Sterling Moss, as our good friend Carlos Costa would name him, has brought the 87 car up to second on a 136.5 flat on a median average. Great job there by the veteran of that particular category.
Thiago Camilo, a great superstar in this sport. But yeah, that median average time of Felipe Bautista and Christian Hans, that's mental, because they have been able to go a 1/10 of a second between each other over the two sessions, and that's what gets you pole position. That's what really brings it up to the top prominence, being as consistent to your teammate as humanly possible, as well as quick. So it's very good work indeed. There is the number 7, Miguel Paludo, the newly crowned Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil champion of 2025. He won that title 2 weeks ago during the Grand Prix weekend of the Sao Paulo Grand Prix of Formula One, in very tricky conditions as well, where he duelled magnificently with Marcel Muller and Christian Hahn all the way to the final lap, which rather sadly saw Christian Hahn lose it driving past the bleachers and dropping it into the pit wall. Very unfortunate indeed for his race to fall apart like that. But the championship went right down to the wire in the final lap of the season between Miguel Paludo and Christian Hahn. Fabulous challenge all the way. And with Miguel Paludo grabbing that top spot in the championship fight, the pressure's off him for this one, although if you said that to him, he would ignore you, because he's never off the pressure as far as he's concerned. Always wants to go for the top spot. But yeah, pole position is not necessarily, as Alex mentioned, going to be the fastest driver in the session, because currently the 544 car is only 3rd position on the grid at the moment between Marcel Muller and Felipe Fraga, and Felipe Bautista and Christian Hahn, who are the guest drivers this weekend. Don't forget, they weren't there at Portimao Estoril. They've come straight in and gone pole position. So this is literally anybody's to command. If you can put together 2 decent laps across the 2 sessions that are relatively close to the top and relatively close to each other, you're in with a good chance.
Yeah, I think, well, Fraga's got to get himself as close as he can to the top 10, because when you think about it, the top 3 on median average here, Jake, covered by 12,000 shy of a 1/10 of a second.
It is amazing how close it is. We're going to see a lot of fans in the stands tomorrow for the 500 kilometres. They will come and enjoy. And why wouldn't you, when you consider just how many great wafts of talent we've got up and down the length and breadth of this pit lane. Think of the surnames that we've got in this grid. Bozel, Fittipaldi, Barrichello 2 times over, Fraga, Casagrancia, Camilo, Ramayo, Piquet Jr., Monteiro. So many big talents in this field. Up and down the length and breadth.
Suzuki.
Yeah, we haven't even mentioned Wilson or Fassbender yet. So there's there's so many reasons for the fans to come along. And of course, in the challenge competitor, even the female fan base, which is growing all the time for the Porsche Challenge Brazil, they'll have the 17-year-old from Virginia in Minas Gerais. Cecilia Rebelo is going to be behind the wheel later on in the session. So there's so many reasons for the fans to flock to Interlagos tomorrow. 500 kilometers of the very best of Brazilian motorsport over 4.5 hours.
With around 40 Porsche Carrera Cup cars going around this 4.309 kilometer circuit. I mean, like, literally, when I watched back the Cascais Grand Prix, just seeing all those cars line up, it is going to be a mad race. And of course now, just going to keep... I'm on Fraga watch at the moment. He's currently down in 17th position, so I think maybe he's trying to get some temperature, get the tyres through the heat cycle. Of course, these, Michelin has always been a long-standing partner of Porsche Motorsport, and with the Sport Cup tyres, you really need to get them through the heat cycle. And that'll take normally about 2 to 3 laps. And with a track temperature that is increasing, we've gone up to 37.2 degrees Celsius on the track. The air temperature is slightly dropping. The humidity is slightly picked up as well. And we've got a quarter of this session left to go to see what Felipe Fraga can bring. His best effort so far in this session, 1:36.755. So he really needs to get into the 36.5s for the 5:44 to have any chance of getting it on pole position for tomorrow's final race of the season.
Miguel Paludo's done a personal best in Sector 1, a personal best in Sector 2. He's about to skyrocket up the table, but just how far? Not as far as I thought he might. 25th position at the moment as Gabriel Casagrancia bangs in the second quickest of the session so far.
Whoa! And that's put them top. That's put them top overall.
1:36.301 for the median. So Casagrancia pushing them straight up to the top. So it looks like Lightning McQueen is going to be the quickest car on the grid. Fantastic stuff then from Alcifer Manito in session 1 and Gabriel Casagrancia in session 2. There he is, second in the session, but fastest overall when the median average is taken into account for the number 8. I'm sorry, I can't look at that car and think it's correct. It should be the 95 still, but fantastic to see Casagrancia really stretching the legs.
And now Fraga's just gone purple in sector 2, Jake. Now he's stretching the legs. Here we go. And that was a 30.048. He did a low 36.6 on the opening sector and has just gone P3. That's put them top on the median average by over a quarter of a second. 1:35.768 from Felipe Fraga, and that has put them at the sharp end. That was a quicker lap than Marcel Muller in the opening session.
Practice if you can. That is the simple... There's a simple message to everybody else in the field.
And Elias is now responding. Elias is now responding as well.
That didn't take long, did it? Enzo Elias just needed the little bit of a wake-up call and think, right, is that all you've got? Right, let's see what we can come up with. This is, again, the car that he's been sharing with Christian. And so now we'll get to see as through comes the 26 car. This is another of the Blau Motorsport cars. Felipe Batista up to third quickest, and that puts him on the front row. So Felipe Batista putting the third fastest time in session 2, and that puts them on the front row overall for tomorrow after the lap that was set by Christian Hahn earlier on. Ayam Cordier has just come up with the goods there. Second fastest time in the session, only 59 thousandths of a second off the top spot. Here comes Nelson Piquet Jr. Expect a couple of fireworks now that he's got the car up to speed. We'll see what he's able to do. Third quickest. How about that? 1:35.722, and that puts them third on the grid as well.
Yeah, William Freres has gone purple in the middle sector, so now it's a case of keeping an eye out for a lot of cars. And here comes Felipe Fraga. No personal bests in the opening 2 sectors, but I'm keeping an eye out. Yeah, that's their session done and dusted. But, I mean, Casagrancia's just gone personal best. Gabriel Rob has just catapulted the 38 car that he's sharing with Eric Santos up the order to 8th position as William Frere goes top. 1:35.503 and puts that on the inside of row 2.
Yeah, that's third position on the grid with the median average taken into account. A very good start to proceedings. A minute and a half left on the timer. As it's now Frere fastest in the session from Martins, Cordier, Piquet Jr. and Felipe Batista. Then Fraga and Casagrancia from Gabriel Robert and Enzo Fittipaldi. And then the 10th man in is Sergio Romayo. So far looking very strong indeed. But on that front row of the grid, it is the men who are 5th and 6th overall in the session. That is Felipe Fraga and Felipe Batista, although hello, Nelson Piquet Jr. has popped himself back up into the mix, 5th position there, and that puts them 6th on the grid, just behind Casagrancia and Felmanito. Look at the grass that's being picked up on the way to the bleachers out of Jinsao. Very tough stuff as the competitors continue to find that little bit of extra pace. Now they can cross the line and start one more flying lap if they can get there before the timer ticks down. So we could still see a fair few shuffles of the deck. At the moment, it is the 544 of Fraga and Muller on pole position with the 26 of Batista and Hahn in second, thanks to the median average. And there are still a fair few cars out there coming up with green sectors.
One of which is not the 26 of Felipe Batista. Did not do a personal best in the opening sector, so he's got to try and gather it together as we're counting down 10 seconds until the checker goes out. And Fraga has pitted, no surprise. Right, Vivacqua's just put it up to 9th place in the number 14, and that has put them mid-pack in terms of the Carrera division, puts them 15th on a median average of a 1:36.649. But I mean, Felipe Baptista is this going to be a final push from the 26th? It's 31 thousandths on the median average between the 26th and the 5:44. Here he comes to the line.
The last chance to try and snatch away the pole position. What is Felipe Baptista going to be able to pick up with? Crosses through. Oh, so tight. So tight. A 1:35.74 as Gomez pops up. Third position for the 100. Right on the final moments of the session then. Marcos Gomez sharing that car with Seba Manuchelli. That's popped up. Don't forget that Marcos Gomez is the Stock Car Pro Champ from 2015, 10 years ago. So he's not a man to be trifled with. Many of the cars realizing they're not going to get a faster time and then bailing in at the end of the session. But I think we've got our front row set in stone then. 5:44, looking good to wrap up this title. Fraga and Moller, all they needed was a decent run in qualifying, and they had two. Up to the top spot then for the 5:44 car. And it doesn't look like they are going to be slowing down anytime soon heading into the race tomorrow. The hat-trick will guarantee the championship title for them after a season of misery in the Porsche Carrera Cup itself. In the Endurance Challenge, it looks like the 5:44 is going to put it all to sleep before we even turn a wheel in the 500k. But we've said that before and been very wrong a few hours later.
Yeah, I mean, obviously these cars will now be put into parc fermé conditions, and obviously the scrutineers for the championship can at any point decide whether they're going to pull a car in for technical inspection. And if something is out of kilter, well, that means the slam dunk penalty will go somebody's way. But I have to say, though, William Frere with an epic lap to put him top of the timesheets and bring that car to the inside of row 2 for tomorrow's 500-kilometer race. But it was just the case of when you saw the likes of Fraga, Baptista, Elias, they all really started putting down some full throttle laps around here at Interlagos, and that just goes to show. I mean, top 25 rounded out by the number 7 with the pairing of Miguel Paludo and Alan Hellmeister. They were all the way down in 25th position, 1.006 seconds off of William Frere's top time.
It's crazy how close it was in session 2. A second covering effectively the top 26 cars, essentially, from the 30 that went out. And yeah, for Miguel Paludo to be a second away, that's costly. That's going to put them down in 7th on the grid with the median average that he shared with Alan Hellmeister. How weird is it that Miguel Paludo is outside the top 20 of a qualifying session in Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil? That's bonkers. And fascinating to see how it's all shaken around. You picked up on Thiago Vivacqua there getting into the top 10 at the end. I was wondering when we were going to get some firepower from Thiago Vivacqua, who's never seems to be far away from the top spot in Porsche Carrera Cup, and he'd left it quite late, but he did manage to drag the car into the top 10, so that is good news for that particular squad. So that's the top 30 positions set for the starting grid then. Now we've got 2 more sessions as we look out over this beautiful Sao Paulo skyline. There is nowhere in the world quite like Sao Paulo for motorsport fans, right in the heart of it all. Most motor racing circuits, they tend to be outside the main city that they are based in by anywhere between 5 to 25 miles. Not in Sao Paulo. Oh no, it's built right in the heart of the city, the heartbeat of the passion of motorsport, and all of the great racing drivers from Brazil, from Carlos Pache to Emerson Fittipaldi to Nelson Piquet Jr. to Ayrton Senna to Rubens Barrichello to Felipe Massa, have all cut their teeth on this fantastic circuit. In fact, Felipe Massa is here this weekend. Had a great little conversation with Chris Diaz on social media yesterday, and it's wonderful to see him. I was half expecting him to sign up for this one, having had a fantastic season in Stock Car Pro Brasil, but he clearly feels, well, I'm going to wait until I get myself behind the wheel in a Porsche Carrera Cup again. And of course, with him being in the news recently, he had a bit of a triumph in the trial to determine whether or not he's going to get some compensation from the 2008 Formula One Championship. He won't get the title. That was what was concluded by the judge, but they have taken his financial ramifications to trial, so he could still get some justice. He said in the press You know, this isn't just about me getting what I deserve. This is about the justice for Brazilian fans of motorsport, for people who want justice to be served. And it's looking very likely that that court case will be upheld in the high courts. So it's not quite a championship title, but it is a mini victory for Felipe Massa. Very much in the news again this week. But wonderful to see him here at Interlagos. It's always a wonderful privilege and a great honour and a wonderful sight to see this fantastic ace of the circuit, the last man to win the Brazilian Grand Prix on this circuit in Formula One, back in the Interlagos paddock again. Challenges up first for their first session.
Yeah, and I think he even actually got behind the wheel as well. He was actually in a race suit with the race helmet on, and they had actually Burt. But I mean, I have to say, shout out to Max Wilson, Chris Diaz, doing a great job with all the interviews. But it's nice to see Max, take off the street clothes and get behind, get in a triple Nomex FIA certified race suit and helmet, and get his backside behind the wheel. And it's great that there is so much camaraderie in this paddock here in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. I mean, I see the same thing in Porsche Cup Suisse, which I'm really, really pleased to be back with again next season for another tour. So again, it's, you come into the Porsche Motorsport family, you are treated like family.
That's so true. Yeah, that's a really wonderful part of what goes on here. What I'm interested in, actually, with Max Wilson and Michael Fassbender is what language are they speaking when they talk to each other? Because let's not forget that Max Wilson was not born in Brazil. He was born in Hamburg, in Germany. So too was Michael Fassbender. He was born in Heidelberg. So I wonder, are they chatting to each other about race trim in English, or are they chatting to each other in German?
Well, the thing is, if anyone's watched the Road to Le Mans series, I mean, I've met two other people that were heavily involved in that project, Felipe Laza and also Basti Borowski, who were actually at Monza for round 3 of Porsche Cup Suisse. Felipe was due to get behind the wheel of the Rinaldi Racing 992 GT3R before, unfortunately, Pierre-Eric got caught up in a carambolage going through into, I think it was Della Roggia. No, it was actually Rettifilio. And he struck the steel barriers underneath the camera position. So the front end of that Porsche was very much second hand, and the car did not make it out for the 2-hour enduro later on that day. But the thing was, it was always, I would say, more than likely it's going to be English, because I'm not too sure on how good Michael's German is these days.
It has been a long time since he's been in Heidelberg, let's be fair. He's a bit of a Hollywood aficionado now. So they'll take a breather, and we'll focus our attention on the challenge drivers, of which there are plenty. Caio Castro and Danilo Derani teaming up in the 22 car. That is the combination of Carlos Ruiz Sr. and Carlos Ruiz Jr., very popular members of the paddock. In the number 55 rookie car, Leonardo Herman and Vito Bautista, and the other Carrera Cup car, the number 66, Stella Clayton and Fabio Carboni. And then we've got a handful of sport drivers, Luis Souza and Bruno Bonifacio in the number 2 car, Andrei Gaczynski and Riccardo Mauricio teaming up in the number 37. That's a new car for this week, the number 37 of Riccardo Mauricio, of course, the driver who was the first ever Brazilian Red Bull driver, competing in F3000 from 1999 up until 2002. The second ever Red Bull Junior driver, of course. Anyone want to give a guess at that? Enrique Bernoldi, whose son is getting into the world of motorsport himself now, into cars. Beto Bernoldi is going to be in F4 next year, so won't be too long, I'm sure, before we get Kike and Beto coming into the world of Brazilian top-level motorsport again. I wouldn't be too surprised to see them teaming up in Porsche Carrera Cup in future events. Also in the sport category, we have Matias Iorio and Jose Moranito. Female fans of the category will be delighted to see Pietro Romano teaming up with a 17-year-old megastar, Cecilia Rebello, who essentially has caught the Porsche bug after teaming up with Letizia Buffoni and Antonella Bassani last year in the endurance finale. They basically invited her to be the third driver. She wasn't too sure if she was going to do it, and then decided at the last moment. Here she is, in fact, on your screen, Cecilia Rebello, 17 years of age, from Varginha in Minas Gerais. She spent 2 years of racing in the F4 Brazil Championship, scoring a pole position in her debut year at the age of 15. She's got great talent, as Cecilia Rebelo. She decided she knew she was going to have some financial problems continuing in single-seaters. Letizia Buffoni and Antonella Bassani basically talked her into joining in with her last year at the endurance finale. Letizia Buffoni, of course, many people will know as a Porsche trophy driver this year, but that's not what she's famous for. She is actually a superstar skateboarder in the X Games with Red Bull backing. So Letizia Buffoni, one of the best sports car newcomers in Latin America, but also the best of her skateboarding fraternity in Brazil. And great to see Cecilia Rebelo really getting into the hang of things in the sprint challenge. It's not going to be too long before we get 2 ladies on the Porsche Carrera Cup field. Cecilia Rebelo just cutting her teeth in challenge. I wouldn't at all be too shocked to see her competing in the rookie class of Porsche Carrera Cup next year. The other drivers in the rookie category of challenge, we're going to have Daniel Newman and Gustavo Bandera teaming up with the number 21 car. Then Rafa Brocchi and Vitor Gens in the 246. And the last car we haven't mentioned is the treble 9 of Claudio Reina and Jose Gonçalves.
Yeah, I mean, Cecilia Rebelo really came into her stride at stage 4 back at Portimao, where she actually secured pole position, then went to take her first class victory and then rounded it out with second place as well. So I think what the other 2 ladies did was a really, really good decision. I mean, you can't exactly miss Cecilia Rebelo's car in the number 98 that goes second in the division at the moment, but it's Sara Gleiter, who is also a very, very quick driver in the category, and is partnered with Fabio Carboni, has put in a 139.392. So these cars are the previous generation, so the 991.2 3.8 litre flat 6 boxer engine, naturally aspirated, 485 horsepower, 1,175 kilograms. So the thing is, folks, when we go green for 500 kilometers tomorrow afternoon, wherever you may be watching in the world, or in Jake's case, it'll be early doors in the morning on the Sunday, it will be a case of we will have 6 categories running together.
Now you've got 6 races in one grid. It is a fantastic battle as ever, and that changes multiple times through the course of the race. If you've never seen a Porsche Brazil endurance race before, you're certainly not going to be bored, because for the 4 hours and 15 minutes or 117 laps, it's going to change multiple times over the course of the race. There's going to be several battles out on course and in the pit lane, of course, as well. Though it really will be a challenge. Now, these challenge drivers, Alex, need to enjoy this free circuit while they can, because they've actually got an advantage compared to their Carrera Cup counterparts. Qualifying for Carrera Cup sees 30 cars out on track at the same time. In challenge, we only have 11. So these guys have actually got a better chance of getting clean laps down because they've got less traffic to be congested by.
Yeah, and the real estate is at a premium, and it's going to be a real big problem tomorrow, especially, you know, if we see the Carrera cars close up in and pass the challenge cars at some point tomorrow. But of course, with the fact that you know, these cars still make a heck of a noise, as there is the number 2 car, Luis Souza, behind the wheel, with Bruno Bonifacio due to go out in session 2. I mean, it's a quick turnaround for these respective qualifying sessions for the Endurance Challenge for Brazil, but it's Sara Gleiter who leads, and that is overall in the number 66 challenge car. But there's another car that we need to also concentrate on, the rookie pairing of Daniel Neumann and Gustavo Bandera. And Bandera is behind the wheel at the moment, only just over a 10.5 behind Sara Gleiter, and has just done a personal best in the middle sector of 31.145. Was about half a second down in the opening sector, and well, as I say that, Ruiz Jr. goes up to P2, or 52 thousandths behind Sara Gleiter. But as I say that, 52 thousandths covers the top 3 overall in this opening challenge qualifying session number 1.
That is tight. That is very close indeed. Now, as we mentioned before, there is a horsepower deficit in the 991.2 car compared to the 992 machines used by the Carrera drivers in their 3 categories. But the challenge drivers have a little bit less horsepower to play with. But the car is slightly lighter. It doesn't make up for the fact that with that horsepower deficit, lap times here are going to be in the low 139s to high 138s at best, compared to their counterparts in Carrera Cup that are in the 136s and 135s. So these are going to be for positions 31 to 41 of the grid. But it will be a competitive race battle because we've got 3 cars in challenge, 4 cars in challenge sport, 4 cars in challenge rookie, and only 3 places on the podium for each class. So everyone's going to be really at it to try and work their way further forward. My apologies. No, of course, it's 5 places on the podium in Porsche Challenge Brazil and Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil. So there are 5 podium places. And of course, the way that the races play out with the classes, this is going to sound complicated. So stay with me, grab a coffee, and let's go through the
I've got mine at the ready.
Good man. So in the Carrera Cup, the main competition is, of course, the Cup class, and it's the top 5 cars that come through that get on that particular podium. Then in the sports category, it is the top 5 cars that come through on the sport class podium that get the podium positions. In the rookie, it is the top 5 cars that get the rookie podium. In challenge, it's slightly different because we have challenge, sport, and rookie, and they are the outright top 5, led by the leading sport cars or rookie cars that are also included. So basically the overall podium or the challenge podium includes the rookie and sport classes. So it's the top 5 cars across the line. In sport and rookie are taken into account, so they get the top 5 class. Then the rookie cars will get their own separate podium of what's going to be, well, 4 cars rather than 5. So if that made any sense to anybody, I probably wasn't telling it right, but that is how the podium classes work out in challenge compared to Carrera Cup. It will make more sense tomorrow, I promise. But what you need to know is that all 6 classes are going to be at each other's throats from the start to the end in 4 hours of the Interlagos circuit, and it is going to be fantastic. Now, the number 23, that is Leonardo Herrmann's car, and it looks like they have already had to go for one of the donor cars because that is the plain white Porsche. There are a handful of spare cars in the paddock because in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil and Porsche Challenge Brazil for the endurance ranks, you are allowed to change cars mid-race. It's very unique to the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil paddock, but there are a fleet of about 8 Porsches standing by that you can change over for mid-race, provided that you've obviously come in and done things correctly at the pit stop window. If you have to wait until the pit stop window to change the car, then unfortunately you have to do that. So you can lose a lot of laps waiting for that opportunity to come up. But essentially you're allowed to change cars and keep going mid-race if you get to the pit stop window, or if you're still racing at the pit stop window. Some teams choose to retire altogether, but some think, well, you never know what's going to happen. Particularly in challenge we see this. You could see another car have a similar trouble and they still could get a podium out of it. So we do see quite commonly those 8 donor cars being utilised. But Leonardo Herrmann is not in his trademark chrome silver number 23 machine. They've gone for a donor car, so they must have had some damage in free practice already, and that doesn't bode well for the race tomorrow. For they to already be in a backup car during quali, that's going to be a headache for Leonardo Herrmann and his teammate sharing that particular car, Vito Bautista.
Yeah, and well, at the meantime, to be honest with you, the number 21, Gustavo Bandeira, has put in a really, really good set of laps, 138.725, just over 2.5 tenths quicker than Cecilia Rabello in the sports category. And then Caio Castro, partnering with Danilo Derani in the number 22, rounds out the overall top 3, covered by 4 tenths. And then it is Carlos Ruiz Jr. in the number 55 rookie entry that rounds out the top 4. And then it's the 999 of Claudio Reina, who's partnered with Joao Gonçalves in the 999, rounds out the top 5. And then Sadek Leita has been dropping down the order a little bit, but has just done a personal best in the opening sector of a mid 37.7 in the 66, partnered with Fabio Carbone. So Banderas really set the touch paper alight here, but Cecilia Rebello on cue, top of the timesheets. Great job by the 17-year-old, and the number 98 goes top with a 38.638.
She is really starting to become a bit of a firecracker in this category. Isn't it amazing? You wait ages for one fast female in Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil, and now we've got three of them. It's amazing, isn't it? We've got Tonella Bassani, we've got Cecilia Bello and Letizia Buffoni, and it is fantastic to see the progress being made here by Cecilia Bello, converting from single-seaters last year where she was struggling to maintain a decent average due to the budgetary constraints, to jumping into the Porsche for the first time and finding reasonable pace, to suddenly now challenging for race victories in Challenge in 2025. It's been such an unfortunate season for her in terms of luck, but in terms of speed, no one can take away from the fact that Cecilia Bello has got championship titles potential brewing with confidence. So for her to go top in this session, that's proof of that. And she does so by 87 thousandths of a second. Both she and Gustavo Bandeira 0.3 of a second clear of everybody at the moment. And that's a pretty decent accolade, because you've got Jose Morenito, Gaio Castro, Carlos Ruiz Jr., Claudio Reina, Sarek Leiter included in that. Leonardo Herrmann getting a 1:39.5, not the kind of pace we expect to see from him, but then with him being in a donor car, they've only just had time to set that up for him, essentially. Rafa Broche, and then Luis Souza and Andrei Kaczynski. But certainly a great start to the session for Cecilia Rebello, and that bodes well for Pietro Romano, who should have a relatively decent run to go top three. Looks good for Cecilia Rebello to grab her first endurance pole position.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you say with regards to you know, Herrmann in the 23. You know, the setup is not going to be easy to adjust around here at Interlagos, because as we get later into the afternoon with the sun starting to lower a little bit here at Interlagos, the track temperature has crept up again. We're nearly at 39 degrees Celsius here, Jake, with 2 3/4 minutes of the session left to run. But it's about maximising, you know, whatever cards have been dealt your way, especially with Leonard Herrmann. You know, it's a tough situation to be in. I mean, I still remember seeing that wonderful chrome livery on the 23 at Portimao at qualifying for stage 4. And now he is actually starting to pick up the pace a little bit here. He's just done a personal best over the opening 2 sectors, and he's just improved on lap time. He's just put in a 1:39.484, but that is still 8.5 tenths off Cecilia Rebello. So, but we're seeing Sadek Leiter's now got up to P3. Nito as well. Carlos Ruiz Jr.'s just gone up to 4th, but Neto's just gone purple sector 1, later purple sector 2. So we are going to see the times change in the next minute and 3/4. But Rebello's done a sterling job in the opening part of qualifying for the Challenge division.
A great effort from Cecilia Rebello. Sadek Leiter crossing the line. The 3rd sector wasn't very strong in the end. It looks like he made a mistake there, a 30.17 for the 3rd sector. So that purple sector 2 is almost wasted. Here comes Rafa Broche across the line. What kind of progress can he make? Well, he's improved the lap time, but not the position. 1:39.677 for Rafa Broche. Sadek Leiter needs to cook up another decent lap. Morenito 37.4 for sector 1. That's purple. Sector 2, reasonable, because he's just done a good job. Second quickest as he comes across the line, 30.10. 35 thousandths of a second slower than Cecilia Rebello. There's nothing in it at the top end. The top 4 cars in this session are separated by less than 1/10 of a second. You couldn't call it.
No, not at all. And you know, when you think about it, with Cecilia Rebello, talking about her 2 years in Brazilian F4, first of all with Cavaleiro Sports, then Bassani Racing. You know, she also, the funny thing is that the endurance race last year, when she teamed up with Buffoni and Bassani, she'd also been in Buenos Aires earlier on in the season. So it was her second. I think once you get hooked in and go for an endurance race in one of these cars, then you really get bitten. And that's why Cecilia has done such a great job in adapting from single seaters into sports cars. But I mean, 91 thousandths. It's exactly like it was in qualifying session 1 for the Carreras.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant how close it's been. Across the line, is that going to be an improvement from Sadek when he just managed to cross the line with time to get another fast lap time down? So it's now or never for Sadek as the checkered flag is out. Carlos Ruiz Jr. is the first one to cross the line. Bandera has pitted, so he's not going to get another lap time in. Everybody else is pretty much finishing off their runs or already coming in. Cecilia de Bello crosses the line, having done a 1:50.0 for the last time. So no improvements there, but is this going to be the fastest time of the session for Cecilia Rebello? And that will be such a feather in the cap for her first full season in Porsche Brazil. You can finish this off. We've got some decent times coming in, though.
Sadek Later's done a 39.1 on the opening sector. That won't happen for the 66.
No, it won't. And Jose Morenito is comparable in the second sector, but I'm not sure that's going to be enough. No, it is not. He bails. He comes into the pits on the third sector. So it looks to me as though here comes Leonardo Herman coming through. Personal sectors all the way. Can he upset the balance? No. 8th position for Leonardo Herman. I think this is going to be the first pole position of 2025 for a woman in the challenge category. Cecilia de Bello, 17 years of age, from Virginia in Minas Gerais. He's going to do something quite spectacular. Here comes Sadek Leiter to try and salvage something more than 4th position, but a 32.2 in the second sector. I don't think this is going to be competitive enough. No, he's going to bail. So that confirms it. Cecilia Rebello, fastest in Q3, fastest of the Q2A competitors in the challenge competition, and that is a big moment in her career, a massive milestone for Cecilia Rebello, the youngest driver in the category of challenge, and she's pole position. What a fantastic run from Cecilia Rebello. Now, can Pietro Rebello back it up and go for a pole for that team?
That is... you talk about historic moments. I know that there's going to be family members probably here with her. You know, this is such a... You know, the way she was improving as, you know, I mean, you folks can see on the screens at home just how busy this pit lane is here at Interlagos. And when you have this amount of cars, and that's not even including the trophy division that is also running here for the Sprint Challenge Brazil, because they've got their final rounds here this weekend. But it's the way that Rebello, at such a young age, showed such maturity and improved lap after lap, the track temperature increasing, the tyres probably screaming for blue murder, but she wrestled with it and got her hands dirty and got the job done, and that was very, very crucial.
I mean, can you imagine next season if she's got the opportunity to step up into Carrera Cup, that we're going to have Rebello and Bassani questing for class victories in the Carrera Cup next year? What a prospect that is. That's proper salivation time for Porsche Carrera Cup fans to have two fast ladies at the sharp end of their classes next year, with almost certainly Antonella Bassani going for the Carrera Cup outright. And I would have guessed that Cecilia Rebello will either end up in rookie or probably sport, actually, if she were to move up. I hope she does, because we could see some fantastic duels between Bassani and Rebello on track against each other in the same race next year. That'd be a great prospect.
That would... there would definitely be fireworks, that's for sure, Jake. And to be honest with you, I think it's great because as we see through how many series is run here in Brazil, you know, like say with Stock Car Pro, Stock Car Light, you know, NASCAR Brazil, there are so many different categories where drivers can get involved. And let's talk about another one that's graduated, and when you think let's talk about the Barrichello family for a moment, where this year Duru going to GT3 as an Aston Martin Racing young academy driver, going with the the Spirit of Le Mans crew who started 17th in LMGT3 at Le Mans this year, and they got to pole position, they got to the lead of the race, then suffered engine dramas, and there was a wonderful documentary of that. But then you look at the differing paths between Dudu and Fefo. Fefo now going into with AIX Racing for FIA Formula 3. They are not by any shadow of a doubt, living under their dad's shadow. It's like that kind of thing that we've seen with previous sons, like say Alain and Nico Prost, Michael and Mick Schumacher, Ralph and David Schumacher, for instance. This is a complete departure whereby we see that the sons are forging their own paths, but with big support from good old dad in their corner.
Fantastic scenes here from the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil paddock as we finish off our endurance competition after the two great events earlier this year at Portimao and at Estoril. Now we finish off with the third and final weekend of the endurance competition here at Interlagos, the home of Brazilian motorsport for Grand Prix fans since 1990, when it moved from the former venue at Rio de Janeiro to Interlagos, which was, of course, the original Brazilian home of Formula One in the 1970s, before the circuit underwent its upgrade to become now the permanent home of not just Formula One, but also the World Endurance Championship, which comes here every year and puts on one of the most exciting sports car races on the planet. And very exciting to see how Porsche Carrera Cup continues to mix it all the way through. This year's been a bit of an interesting one for the calendar in what has been the 20th anniversary celebratory year. Only 2 Brazilian circuits actually utilised this season. We've gone on a bit of a tour to celebrate 20 years to Portugal with Portimao and Estoril on the calendar. This year we've only really had Velocita and Estoril. Hopefully next year's calendar is going to see a few more of those die-hard circuits being included. Looks like the demonstration cars just going around in between sessions there. Nothing to worry about, just all part of the statutory protocol. But looks to me, though, as though we've got a very competitive second session coming up for the challenge competitors, because we've got Pietro Urbano, then we've got the very strong talents of Matheus Iorio. He's going to be in the car. And then, of course, we'll have Gustavo Bandeira is actually going to be in the car. We've heard it was Daniel Newman in the first session. My apologies there. It looked to me as though originally on the timing it was Gustavo Bandeira. It's been clarified. It was actually Daniel Newman. Fabio Carboni, Carlos Flores Jr., Danilo Dorani, Joao Gonçalves, Vitor Batista, Vitor Gens, Bruno Bonifacio, and Ricardo Mauricio, all coming out onto the circuit for this second of the challenge sessions. So it really is going to be fascinating stuff. Ricardo Mauricio, good to see him returning to the Porsche Carrera Cup brigade. Marcas champion in 2012, 13 and 14. Two-time Stock Car Pro champion as well, Ricardo Mauricio. The first driver from Brazil in the Red Bull Junior program as far back ago as 1999. Goodness me, tells you how long Red Bull's been involved in motorsport at international level, doesn't it? They were only founded in 1990. And they've been pretty much involved in motorsport from the beginning when they backed Austrian star Gerhard Berger in a sort of a Red Bull athlete capacity. It wasn't really until 1995 that they got into mass corporate sponsorship within motorsport, and then expanded into their driver academy in 1998. And then, well, the rest is history. It wasn't that long until they ended up with their own Formula One team on the grid. And now they are the powerhouse of motorsport that we all know them to be.
And from next year, they will be an official Formula One works team, obviously with their association with Ford Racing for the next generation Formula One cars that we're going to see from early next year, which are heavily under development. And yeah, I mean, it's just like you look at some of the talents that we've who are currently under the Red Bull Junior program, you know, Arvid Lidblad, Christopher Elfgali, Rocco Coronel, one of the recent drivers, the son of WTCC legend Tom Coronel, who's also won this year the Ginetta Juniors and the Ginetta Junior Rookie Championship in the same season, part of the support series for the British Touring Car Championship. So it just goes to show that, you know, it's not a bad thing having being a Red Bull athlete or a Red Bull back driver on your CV.
No, indeed, it's a big fillet for your driving career. Just waiting now for the session to get underway for the second of the challenge groups. Session 1, though, it is confirmed Cecilia de Bello on the top spot. 1:38.638. A great lap time for her. Puts her right up to the sharp end of the field. Jose Morenito, second position, just 35 thousandths of a second slower. 52 thousandths of a second slower than that was Daniel Newman, and 4 thousandths of a second slower than that, Santa Clarita. I mean, you could not script that. Absolutely incredible that all four cars separated by less than a tenth of a second after 20 minutes on track. Carlos Ruiz doing a fantastic job. Not bad at all. He'll now hand over to his son, who will take over the car for the second session. I think Caio Castro would be quite disappointed with only P6, actually. The 36-year-old from Sabazel in Mato Grosso would have liked to have done a bit more than that. Former driver in Formula Truck Brazil, Brazil GT, and has had a go in the sprint category of the GT World Challenge Europe as well. So certainly not what he would have wanted to see. The drivers getting themselves ready for the second of our challenge categories. The demo car has now retreated from the circuit. And so we'll get to see just how high up the grid the competitors will be able to get. Keep an eye in this session on Joao Gonçalves. He'll be wanting to push him and Claudio Reina further forward. I don't think we've seen everything from Gustavo Bandera, former F4 Italian racer and F3 Brazil driver. And keep an eye on what Ricardo Mauricio can do as he takes over the car from Andrei Kaczynski, the 54-year-old from Florianopolis, who was a former GT3 Cup Brazil driver. But Mauricio is certainly going to be trying to push that car further forward. My favourite for the pole position, based on what we've just seen, is the 66 car. Fabio Carboni's got a great chance here to put himself into the pole position. Don't forget, a man who's raced in Formula Nippon, Formula 3 Mackay, Formula Renault 3.5 back in the day, Super GT out in Japan. He's had such an incredible career, Fabio Carboni. And he is an amazing person to trust with this task. So if anyone's going to shock everybody and put it onto the front row of the starting grid, it's going to be Fabio Carboni. Keep your ears pinned.
Yeah, that will be an interesting one to see. And as local time now here at Interlagos, just coming up to 5 o'clock local, so the sun is coming down a little bit, but the track temperature is still increasing. We're at 39.7 degrees Celsius track temp. Air temperature now just a shade under 31 degrees, but some of the drivers were actually being told to pull their visors down, because if they've got the tinted or iridium visors on their race helmets, it's going to help with the glare that might be glancing off the circuit, and especially if they're going up like say Ferradura, La Raginha, turns 6 and 7 and into Esse at turn 8. Now that's where the sun's going to be quite low, so the more that their peripheral vision can be helped, the better it's going to be for the drivers to pedal rather quickly around here at Interlagos, Jake.
Yeah, it's a really significant point you make, Alex, because of course last year we didn't have this problem. We were running at the same time of day, but it was overcast, it was cloudy, so the sun was there, but it wasn't visible, so they really didn't have any glare to put up with. So it's a good point, but this year the challenge of racing at this time of the evening with the sun staring them in the face at very difficult angles on the circuit to be going full jet, that is a slight concern.
But I think at the end of the day, you know, the organisers of the Porsche Carrera Cup Brazil want to make sure that the drivers are kept safe. And if that means that you've got to shut your visor, well, yes. But when you think about it, these cars, I mean, the cockpit temperatures are going to be quite unbearable in some respects. I mean, when you've got that 3.8 flat 6 naturally aspirated 485 brake horsepower engine behind you, okay, it's more mounted to the rear of the car. But the temperature in those cockpits, there's no creature comforts, there's no air conditioning, there's no sound deadening, there's roll cage, metal, and all the tools that you need to get the car around here as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's about as different from the Panamera as it's possible to get in terms of...
Oh, yes. I know that for a fact, because I have to give a shout out to my good friend Rod Christie and the team at Dynamic Motorsport, who ran Dirk Schouten in Mobil 1 Super Cup and Carrera Cup Benelux this year. I got taken out for a passenger ride at Mizar. Oh!
Big shot!
That is a big off, and that could probably bring in an early abruption to this session.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's going to be a red flag for sure. My goodness.
Gonçalves!
It is Gonçalves. We thought he'd be pushing for the pole. What on earth happened there? He just dropped it at the bottom of the hill. That is one of the weirdest places I have ever seen a Porsche go off the road.
And that was at high speed as well. And the red flag has been out 16 minutes and 24 to go. And
naturally.
that was a big hit to the left front. Took the brunt of the impact there. So it's literally ripped the steering arm off. The coolant was thrown into the air the minute the car impacted the barriers. So that could be a possibility that the 999 might have to take one of those spare cars if they can't repair it. If there's frame damage to that car's a no-goer.
I think you're right, Alex. They may well have to go into a donor car for the start of the race tomorrow at the very least, if not the entirety of. That is such a strange place for the car to go off as well. It just listed as he dropped it down the crest. It's not a natural place to go off the road, but of course, if you're not prepared for that transfer of weight at speed, that shift from the front end to the rear end, it can swap the car over. And well, that's a very strange accident indeed for Joao Gonçalves, just caught out on cold tyres, essentially. And that's a man who's, you would not necessarily think he would be making that kind of mistake. He's been in the Brazilian sports car world for 15 seasons now, raced in Brazil GT and GT3 Cup over the years. He's no slouch. So that is a very strange accident for Joao Gonçalves. I wonder if something failed on the car. I wonder if something suddenly went as he dropped down the hill, because Joao Gonçalves is not a rookie. He is not the kind of driver to drop it like that.
No, I mean, the thing is, he was trying to turn the car right to kick the tail end out to react. And it was, I mean, the thing was, he would have been on the accelerator going through that corner, and the car just instantly went to the left. So I'm thinking, it's a bit difficult. I mean, because of the fact that they were going out on their outlaps. Okay, yes, the track temperature is at 39.7 degrees Celsius, but if you over commit or if you over rotate, I mean, it just looked odd. It just looked odd. But the main thing is, Joao Gonçalves is out of the car, under his own power, on both feet. That's the nice thing we want to see.
Yeah, that's the only thing that matters in an incident like that. Is the driver okay? The answer is yes. So Joao Gonçalves able to walk away and wonder what on earth happened. And it is a very unusual accident for somebody of the ability and the skill of Joao Gonçalves. I think that something went wrong on that car. It's such a bizarre crash in such a strange part of the circuit as well, because he was in the middle of the road. He wasn't on the racing line, so he was still warming the tyres up. I wonder if maybe the suspension arm has collapsed and that threw him off the road at speed. I wonder if something there has fallen on the car and essentially kicked him into the barriers.
Right.
That's not a Joao Gonçalves style incident.
I think it's left front steering, because
the
car, it's either steering or it could be, as you said, suspension. But the thing is, if for a car to go off the circuit like that, I think it's steering. It could be tie rods, lower steering arm, maybe upper arm on the suspension. Maybe a ball joint's failed. The thing is that these cars are put through so much in general that one wrong thing, even it could be something as simple as a bolt that could shear, and straight away the torsional rigidity of that component is literally thrown away. So I think it's more like the left front let go and it pitched the car left when Gonçalves was not expecting it.
Check this out down in pit lane. Look at the shot as Cecilia Rebello has come over to Pietro Romano's car. I know the psychology of racing drivers. That's a driver who is trying to play it cool, but is very, very aware of the fact that this could be their first pole position together as a combo. She's trying to play it cool and act all team player and everything, but normally a driver in these circumstances, if they're playing it chill, if they're relaxing, they are still in the garage, they are still just going through the motions. I think Cecilia Bello's got nerves, but she's trying to play off the team player camaraderie. She's come over to Pietro Romano for another pep talk with Pietro and the mechanics here. the psychology of this is fascinating because that's a driver who knows she's on the crest of becoming the youngest challenge pole position driver for quite some time. And she can't help herself. You know, when you're in that situation as a driver, you know that a pole position is imminent. You can't help it. You just got to be down there on the scene, seeing if there's any last thing you can do to hype up the mechanics, to hype up the driver to make it happen.
Yeah, and in some respects, I think by her talking with people is probably settling her nerves a little bit.
I think so.
I'm still sort of like having a look at this this moment for João Gonçalves, because it was. I did notice. I'm just looking through the replay quite slowly. It looks like the front wheel might have been off a little bit, so it may not necessarily be steering. If that wheel nut, if they've decided to put new tyres on João Gonçalves' car, if that wheel nut has either sheared off or it's not been secured, I could see that front tyre might be slightly protruding from the arch. So that is probably why the car. Yeah, I've just seen it. That wheel moved and it pulled it left.
Okay, so we think a loose wheel nut then might have been the culprit for João Gonçalves going off there on the approach to Geração. I have to say, having seen it at the time, that is not a João Gonçalves accident. He is a much better driver than that accident would suggest. So I think we have to give the benefit of the doubt to him there and say, yeah, with the wheel looking likely to be loose, that explains the incident. I think we're only going to be under red flags for about another 5 minutes or so. But Cecilio De Bello leaning over the number 98 car, chatting to Pietro Urbano, just trying to see if there's any last words of wisdom she can give to her teammate to cook up this pole position. They are so close to it with that fantastic lap from the 17-year-old in the first session. Can Pietro Urbano back it up and put on another fantastic run? Another thing to observe, you mentioned it earlier, Alex, but I've been keeping an eye on the number 66 car in the pit lane, Fabio Carboni at the end of the pit lane. He's been waving that door quite a lot over the last couple of minutes. That tells you quite a lot about how hot it is in those cockpits. You mentioned it earlier, but it is going to be very intense indeed out there. 30.2 degrees Celsius.
Yeah. Track temperature now 40.2. Humidity's gone up to 49%. So it's the air surrounding these cars. It's probably like about 60 to 65 degrees in the cockpit. And I mean, coming back to my passenger ride that I had, a big thank you to Rod Christie, Matteo Malocelli and the team at Dynamic Motorsport. I got a 3-lap hot ride in a current 992 generation GT3 Cup car, and believe you me, it is seriously so. These drivers are like hoofed in. You might think that, oh yeah, you've probably got plenty of space. No, you haven't. It is so claustrophobic. Even I was like thinking, how close am I to this front windscreen? You know, and like literally, it was. I have to say, it's one of the biggest. Like I've been in a passenger ride before with another manufacturer. With funny enough, a man that later on that same year that I had that taxi ride, switched back to Porsche, Dirk Werner, and we went out the Louses ring, but. When you get, if you ever get the opportunity to have a passenger ride in one of these cars, whether it's the 991.2 or the 992 GT3 Cup car, take that opportunity, because one of the things that these drivers are having to contend with is, apart from the sound deadening and no creature comforts, the acceleration in both cars, especially the 992s, are so brutal. Like literally, as Rod was going up the gears, and I can actually say this via race logic telemetry via GPS, we were going through Corvone at the top of Misano at 240 kilometers an hour. Rod was still on the acceleration through Corvone, and before the braking zone, before the double right, we were doing 252 0.8 kilometers an hour, and that was with me.
Wow.
And I'm 95 kilos, so that was making the car probably about the best part of 1,400 kilos with 510 brake horsepower in the back of that thing. And I said to Rod, just go for it. And to have that opportunity, I have to say a big thank you to Porsche Sports Cup Suisse for allowing us for it to happen. But it's one of the most brutal, but one of the most satisfying things, because there's very rare times when a commentator is rendered speechless. I was speechless for about half an hour.
I'm not surprised. Not surprised at all. Green flags at the end of the pit lane. So great to see it all. Cecilia Rebello skips back down the pit lane. She is full of the joys of spring, hoping that Pietro Urbano is going to turn this into the first pole position for the 98 car this year in the endurance category of the Challenge Sport, the Challenge Sport class. Great chance awaits us here for Cecilia Rebello as she leaves it in the capable hands of Pietro Urbano, who turns 28 in January. So it'll be fascinating to see if it all gets underway. And of course, Cecilia Rebello is going to be turning 18 next week. So a great chance for her to get a nice little early 18th birthday present if it turns out that this is going to be a pole position. And it would certainly set things up nicely for a sport class victory in tomorrow's 500 kilometres. And just hearing about that GT3 drive in the Porsche Carrera Cup car, that sounds fantastic. The only time I've ever had the delights of full chat in a modern Porsche was the GT2 car around the Dubai Autodrome as a passenger in the capable hands of the former Porsche Club president of Dubai, Karim Al-Azari, who of course is father to 3 very talented racing drivers of his own. Keanu Al-Azari, who currently races in Formula Regional level and GB3 out in the UK. Adam Al-Azari, who's been battling for the title in the Air Force Saudi Arabia Championship the last few weeks out in Bahrain and at Jeddah. And of course, the member of the racing family that doesn't really get talked about much, Enzo Al-Azari, who's been a very capable endurance kart racer out in the United Arab Emirates and is now focusing on his international academic studies rather than his racing talents. So fabulous to see how the other half lives out in Dubai, but their GT2 car absolutely stunning. I can only imagine what a GT3 car must be like at the limit. I've spent a lot of time on the sim trying to get a GT3 car up to scratch, but I've got a feeling that the experience is not quite the same as yours somehow, Alex.
I'll have to send you the raw footage of the onboard with the race logic telemetry, my friend. But yeah,
I will enjoy that.
Like literally, we came out of the final corner at Covermisano, and I just said to Rod, I just literally gave him the sign as if to say, right, here's the hot lap, let's go for it. This is what these drivers are going to be doing now, because we've got 14 minutes of this session left to go. And when you think about it, I mean, with regards to Cecilia Rebello, at Portimao at stage 4, that was the first time she'd actually I think she'd gotten her first sprint win under her belt in Challenge Sport. And under stiff opposition as well, but to get an overall challenge pole in the final endurance race of the season, I mean, that would be a historic moment for this series.
We cannot take away from her the fact that she got it done in the first session on her own. Now it's up to Pietro Urbano to finish the job, but she's done everything she can, and certainly the powers that be watching over her career at the moment will be taking note of that. Fastest of all in her session, and considering that she was up against some very serious talent, the likes of Caio Castro, Jose Molinito, Claudio Reina and Leonardo Herman, as well as Sadok Leiter, don't forget. That's going to be very much big stuff in terms of the Brazilian experts in motorsport, who will know how big an achievement that is for Cecilia Rebello. 15 minutes left of the session when they left the pits has suddenly become just over 12, as the drivers are still dialing in fast lap times at the moment, and Pietro Urbano has set the benchmark on the first lap, 1:37.906. So that is a very good start for Pietro Urbano, and that's a lap that might not get beaten.
Well, Fabio Carboni has just put in a lap of his own at 1:38.211, which has put them on the outside of the front row overall in Challenge in the 66 car. So 2 personal bests in the second and third sector, but Urbano went purple in sectors 2 and 3 in the number 98 cars. So it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I'm wondering how the pairing of Bandera and Neumann are going to get on as well, because when you consider that they were, what, P3 in the previous session? So this could be another competitive car that might get on the front row, might even get pole position. But time is fast running out. The track temperature has started to drop, Jake. We're at 38.4 degrees track temperature, just under 30 degrees there. But the humidity here in Interlagos is starting to climb.
So it's definitely not easy pickings at the moment for everybody. Still a lot of opportunities for things to slip, and everybody knows just how difficult it's going to get. So some very tricky moments await us if things continue as they currently are. But that battle for the pole position still very much in the offing between these two cars. The 98 of Cecilio De Bello and Pietro Rombano, with Rombano at the wheel. And of course the 66 of Fabio Carboni, having now taken over from Sadak Leiter. This is tense stuff all the way to the checkered flag now, expecting this to be the very tall order at the end. What an exciting battle it is set to be to the conclusion. And still, everybody looking for that big gung-ho moment at the end of the session from both drivers. Keep a close eye on Rombano and Carboni, two very talented individuals. There is the 55, that's Carlos Ruiz Jr. trying to up-tempo and set the pace in the hope that there's going to be another decent lap. 137.58 for Pietro Rombano. This pole position is incoming, isn't it? The average now is a 138.1 and a 138.4 as Fabio Carboni's done a 138.2. So the times are definitely dropping, but just how much can Carboni find compared to Rombano?
Well, Carboni's in the pit lane at the moment, Jake, so maybe they're putting a new set of tyres on the car, but then he's going to have to get them up to temperature and get them into the window. Meantime, the 22 car, Danilo Dirani, has just gone and done a personal best lap time, 138.396, and that car is currently on aggregate P4. But Dirani's just done a personal best in the opening sector. That car could maybe overtake Leiter and Carboni for that potential outside of the front row, maybe even quicker. But the thing is, Rombano, not exactly the best sector 2 for the number 98, and has just put in a 37.861 on that particular occasion. So Neumann is improving, 138.556. And that has put that car P4. The 22 is now currently in 5th on aggregate on a 138.699 overall, about 0.6 of a second behind. As here goes Iorio across the line very shortly, is improving all the while.
Bonifatio's come through actually and done a fairly decent lap time there, 138.37, and also a very decent lap time as well from Iorio. He's done a 138.65, so very intense stuff. But what about Pietro Rombano on another decent lap, 37.21 for the first sector, not purple, but certainly very quick indeed, and it just shows that the rhythm of Pietro Rombano is very strong here at the moment, certainly looking good. And comfortable situations for the drivers at this stage. So Pietro Rombano looking good to work in collaboration with Cecilio De Bello and get them their first pole position of the 2025 season. You can see how hard Rombano's pushing right on the exit of the curve there out of Geração, and as they go to the bleachers, managing to catch it up.
Neumann's gone to P2. Neumann's gone P2, 137.790, and that has put the 21 within striking distance of the 98. It's less than a tenth and a half on median average.
Yeah, it's not far away, is it? And Danilo Dirani's just outpaced Fabio Carboni, so there's more than one car trying to wrestle the pole position away from Rebello and Rombano. There is the 21 going through. Very good work indeed from Daniel Neumann. 137.79 with a purple third sector, 29.7 for the third sector. Very impressive indeed from Daniel Neumann. This ain't over yet. 7 minutes on the clock, and everybody wants that pole position for tomorrow's 500k.
Yeah, Bonifacio's just done a personal best, but stays 5th at the moment on a 138.240. But that, well, Iorio's improved again, and that has put the 45 into P5 overall, second in the Challenge Sport division. So outpacing Susan Bonifacio, who are currently all the way down in 7th, and that is 3rd in the category. As again, Fabio Carbone now pilots the 66 through the ZRSs and into Cover de Sol. Was that a little bit wide there for the 21 of Neumann? I think that might have been a little bit of grass clipping, as he's going to head through into turns 14 and 15 and through into Arquibacandas, which is the bleachers, and is going to go across the line. No best sectors over that lap, a 140.257. And one of the things that I'm noticing here, Jake, with regards to the strategy is try and get those tyres into that window of operation. When you feel that it really starts to bite down, then you know that you've got that grip. So I think Neumann just sort of holding back a little bit. There's still an opportunity. He can still bring it into the pit lane and put on a new set of tyres if he so wanted. As Limbano now comes into pit lane with just under 6 minutes of the session to go, as Bonifacio in the number 2 car is improving on the opening sector. Not a great sector 2 for the number 2 car, as he goes very close to the inside white lines, and across the line he goes. That time 1:38.253, 13 thousandths off of his best lap time in the session.
Top 7 cars are covered by just 9/10 of a second at the moment. It really is tight. As up to 3rd comes Matias Iorio. So Iorio comes up with a decent lap time there on the 45 car, and that puts them 3rd on the grid median. 1:38.4 is their average time. Here's Fabio Carbone, who's now got the tyres up to temperature. This won't be the strong lap, but their 3rd sector was a 29.82. They mean business, as Rimbano has come up with another strong lap time and then pitted in. So now it's a case of what will Pietro Rimbano do? Big, lean angle there from the 23. Vito Battista leaning into the curb as he comes up towards the bleachers. Charges onto the main straight now. And this is going to be a decent lap, I think, from Vito Battista. Purple sectors are not there yet. We've got a purple first sector from Riccardo Mauricio. Keep an eye on him as well. As up to 3rd comes Vito Battista. That's a very competitive time indeed, with them 29.7 in the 3rd sector. That puts them up to a 1:37.9. And in terms of the grid for tomorrow, that elevates them up into provisionally P6 in category, as Iorio hesitates there and moves aside, waiting to see what the 37 can do on this run now. That is Riccardo Mauricio. Purple sector 1, very good in sector 2, 30.65. This could be the 2nd fastest time of the session, might even push to the fastest time. But with Riccardo Mauricio making grounds on Andrei Gadzinski, it's not going to put them on the front row of the grid, but it certainly would put them high up in terms of the ranks. Fastest time! 37.567. They found 22 thousandths of a second in the 3rd and final sector. It's not good enough for pole position because of where Gadzinski put his car, but certainly for Mauricio, that tells you what sort of pace he'll be doing when he's in the car tomorrow.
That's not a surprise from the 3-time Stock Car Pro Series champion, who spent 16 years with Eurofarma RC before the silly season began back in 2024 for a lot of changes. There is a little bit of debris on the circuit, so they've got to be careful now of possible punctures might be incoming if anyone clatters on to that debris. But still, with 3 minutes, just over 3 minutes to go, you can definitely tell that drivers are still going to keep on pushing. The track temperature is dropping, as there is the 246 Vitor Gens behind the wheel, partnering with Rafa Brocci, and has done a best middle sector, 1:39.075, improves and goes ahead of Carlos Ruiz, and that is now going to put the 246 9th overall in Challenge, P3 in the Challenge Rookie Division. But Riccardo Mauricio, he's driving like he stole it, and that's another personal best over the opening 2 sectors. No purples across the board, but you don't necessarily need purples if you can put the lap together. Riccardo Mauricio across the line, and that was a 1:37.384. And that is a brilliant demonstration of how consistent a man like his caliber can be.
Irritatingly, his teammate Andrzej Gajcinski could only come up with a 1:41.5 in the first session. So they're still going to be on the back of the grid with the median average rising to 1:39.4. As Fabio Carboni,
whoa,
that's the big one, 1:37.1, and that puts them pole position. They've taken it away from Ribano and Rebello.
Oh.
Great lap, fantastic lap, a 1:37.16. Purple in sector 1 and 3. You can't take it away from them. But both Ribano and Newman have put it in the pits to park it. They weren't going to go any further anyway on those tyres. But there was just a little bit more under the tank for Fabio Carboni. That's a man who is not to be trifled with. And he's come up with the goods, a 1:37.168. Monstrous lap from Fabio Carboni. And that puts the 66 challenge car onto pole position for tomorrow's 500 kilometers. And fair enough.
Yeah, I have to give a shout out here to Vitor Batista in the number 23 car, partnering with Leonardo Herman. He's got that car up to P5 in this session. And what's more, that's going to put them P6 on the grid with a median average of a 1:38.665. I mean, Leonardo having a difficult time in Q1 with a 39.480, but Ricardo Mauricio, this time the lap isn't as good as it should be, and he's going to pull it into pit lane. But nevertheless, from the three-time Stock Car Pro Series champion, a great effort to put that car P2 in the session, as there are still attempts happening. I mean, Vitor Gens has got the car, the 246, up into P8. But more importantly, Jake, that car now, even though it's P2 in the Challenge Rookie, that has still put them 7th overall on the median average grid.
Yeah, it's really good work indeed there from the 23, Vitor Batista. That is a donor car, don't forget. It's not their race car. They've had to go for one of the spares, so very impressive work from this man. Vitor Batista on your screens, still trying to find quick lap times at the end of the session. And he's going to commit for the end of the lap. He's currently in 5th position. 37.2 for sector 1, 30.8 for sector 2, 29.7 in the 3rd sector, and a very decent time there. Another 1:37 lap as we now watch the 246 coming through. That is the last chance really for Vitor Gens to move forward, having done a 1:38.23 on the last lap. Let's see what he does this time. It's a 1:38.4. It's not an improvement as the checkered flag comes out. We got so close to a pole position there for Pietro Ribano and Cecilia De Bello. So close. She did the hard work in her session. Ribano gave it everything he had. But when you've got the likes of Fabio Carboni and Ricardo Mauricio to go up against, you were never going to triumph. What an amazing session to conclude things here in qualifying for the 500 kilometers tomorrow. Fabio Carboni goes top in the session. Ricardo Mauricio goes 2nd. Pietro Ribano 3rd ahead of Newman, Batista, Yorio Derani, Gens Bonifacio, Ruiz, and sadly Joao Gonçalves. We never got to see how fast that car can really go. But what a fantastic performance from Fabio Carboni and Sadek Leiter. They go pole position, 2nd on the grid though for Cecilia De Bello and Pietro Ribano. Their best of the season so far, so nearly their first pole.
Yeah, but I mean, to be honest with you, Jake, the qualifying has just been the aperitif for tomorrow's main course. And we'll also get a bit of a dessert thrown in as well when it's going to be 500 kilometers of racing, 117 laps, or, if it comes to time, 4 hours and 15 minutes. It is going to be a fitting way to conclude the 20th anniversary season of the C6 Bank Porsche Carrera Cup and Sprint Challenge Brasil here at Interlagos.
Yes, indeed. We've got 6 fantastic classes to talk about tomorrow. Pole position in each of the categories. The 544, very strong performance from Marcel Müller and Felipe Fraga. They will be on the Carrera Cup pole position. Fastest car in sport going in, well, that is Francisco Horta and William Frere. Fantastic lap from William Frere in the 2nd session to be the fastest of all across his group. In the rookie category, well, there's not really much that can be said to deviate away from Jeff Chiassi and Silvio Modestoni. Their combination putting that car into 1st position. And in fact, they were in the top 3 overall in Q1. So they're very impressive indeed. Pole position then in the challenge category. In the challenge class, it is Sadek Leiter and Fabio Carboni. In the sport class, it is Cecilia De Bello and Pietro Ribano. And incredibly, in the rookie class, it is Daniel Newman and Gustavo Bandera, 3rd overall in the challenge contingent. We are in for an absolutely mind-blowing race tomorrow. All 6 classes are going to be hell for leather. But in the overall rankings here, Alex, it's very difficult to look past the incredible consistency of Felipe Fraga and Marcel Müller. They are just so strong. And this is absolutely going to be justice for Marcel Müller if he can clean up in all 3 endurance races to make up for the misery of losing the Carrera Cup Brasil.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, we're not going to have the spectacle of Nelson Piquet with his Brabham BMW BT52 leading the field around for the 2 formation laps. But yeah, 500 kilometers at Interlagos. Well, yeah, you've got to say that Fraga and Marcel Müller are the odds-on favourites, but we've still got a race to go. It's not over until that checkered flag flies after 117 laps and 500 kilometers tomorrow, buddy.
It really is going to be a fantastic race battle tomorrow with the 500 kilometers here on the Autódromo José Carlos Pache. Alex, of course, referring to last time out at the Qashqai Grand Prix at Estoril, where we saw Nelson Piquet Senior drive the 2 formation laps of the course in his Brabham BMW Championship winning car from 1983. And we're certainly going to be in for some sensational fireworks tomorrow, both on track and around the paddock. A sellout race, 41 cars in the mix tomorrow across the 6 categories. It really is going to be a sensational battle for all of the contenders. They'll give us plenty of great drama, that is for sure. And we will get ourselves ready for the action here in the Porsche Carrera Cup Brasil endurance category. All 6 classes going down to the wire for the season. The champions will be crowned tomorrow. We'll get 117 laps or 4 hours and 15 minutes, whichever comes first, of non-stop drama all the way. A massive